What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Today we are finally breaking down week 1 of the XFL season, looking at each game and giving you guys an overview of who to start and sit in fantasy and how this game is looking to break down. So with this very first game, we're going to break down the initial game between the Seattle Dragons and the DC Defenders. Make sure you click that like and subscribe button if you want XFL content posted every single day for fantasy and news around the XFL. Let's get started on this breakdown right away. Alright guys, so as I said, breaking down Seattle versus DC. The Vegas line for this one has shifted upwards towards DC over the course of the last couple weeks. DC is now favored to win this by 7.5 points. That is the second biggest spread on the week. So it's looking like DC is set to run away with this one, and overall I tend to agree with that assessment. When you look pound for pound on these rosters, DC at home should be able to win this one pretty decisively. But let's break down all the fantasy relevant names here and kind of go over the updated depth charts that were released today, give you guys all the latest news there. Alright, so starting with quarterback Cardale Jones, will get to make his debut in the XFL with an incredibly strong supporting cast at home in DC, with Josh Johnson potentially missing the game in LA. I would imagine that Cardale Jones will compete with Phil Blocker and Landry Jones to be the best quarterback this week. If you have him, you're starting him. Alright. On the running back side, not really any surprises here on the depth chart. Jhurrell Pressley will be the lead ball carrier, with Donnel Pumphrey being involved likely in the passing game and possibly on third down, seeing that typical, second running back role that you'd see in the NFL. Based on the over-under of this matchup, it looks like there's going to be a decent amount of running and salting the game away here. So there's not really any better running back I like on the slate more than Jhurrell Pressley, and I do think that Pumphrey makes for a really nice flex option this week. So make sure you keep your eyes out for both of those guys, even in DFS. Alright, now looking at the wide receivers, they're not really sure what in the world is happening with this depth chart. There's only 2 wide receiver slots listed, even though every other team has 3. So I think they either aren't planning on deploying a slot receiver, or they just listed it weirdly. In the wide receiver 2 slot, they had Tompkins listed over Rashad Ross. Now, I'm not reading too much into this because we know they're going to have 3 wide receivers on the field most of the time, and because they only had 2 wide receiver sets, I think they're basically just saying that Tompkins and Ross are both starters. And then on the other side, they had Eli Rogers is actually listed as a wide receiver 3, but they had Malachi Dupre over there listed as the other starter. So I'm not sounding the alarm for Rashad Ross. I think that this was just a weird way of formatting the depth chart. We know that Rashad Ross is a tremendous playmaker, and he should still be the lead guy there in DC. DeAndre Tompkins, definitely his value we see tick up now, and you'll see that reflected in my rankings now, although I will have to admit that might end up being fool's gold, because DeAndre Tompkins did miss practice today with, I believe it was a foot injury, and overall that might end up preventing him from playing this week. But looking at the depth charts, assuming everyone plays this week, I would start Ross and Tompkins. I'm probably not going to start Malachi Dupre, even though he's listed as a starter. I really want to see how this ends up slotting out. And then the main guy that I'm sounding the alarm bells for is Eli Rogers being listed as the wide receiver 3 in that second wide receiver slot behind Tompkins, Ross, and Malachi Dupre. Doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for me. And then also Simi Cobbs listed as the wide receiver 3 behind Malachi Dupre on the top wide receiver slot. So I'm not looking to start either Simi Cobbs or Eli Rogers this week. Just seeing how far down the depth chart they are definitely sends a lot of warning signs for me that they aren't doing as well as we were expecting or hoping them to play here in DC. But definitely will still start Ross and Tompkins if Tompkins plays. Alright, looking at the tight end depth chart, no surprises here, thank goodness. Khari Lee is the starter, and he should be the main pass catching tight end. One of the few tight ends this week that didn't see a shakeup in the depth chart, so I am more confident in starting Khari Lee than I used to be. So let's go with that. And then with the defense, DC playing at home with a huge spread against one of the weaker offenses. I think DC is the best defense this week and should be started in all formats. All right. Let's jump over to the away team and look at the Seattle Dragons. Now, as we know from a previous update that Brandon Silvers was named the starter, but I still expect BJ Daniels to be involved quite a bit. You might not have a choice based on your league format if you're playing in like an 8-team league, but if you can avoid starting Silvers this week, I would definitely try to pivot around him. And then on the running back side, in one of the bigger surprises on the depth chart, we see that Jaquan Gardner got the start over Kenneth Farrow, which is pretty big news. Now, for a team that will likely want to run the ball a lot, I do think that Gardner and Farrow will still be involved. But with Gardner, taking that top spot, he's going to end up being a massive value play in DFS this week. While I do think that Farrow will still get used, I want him on my bench until I see how this usage shakes out. I don't really want to trust a running back 2 on a team playing for a team that has an over-under of, or that they're favored to lose by 7.5 points. There's not going to be much opportunity for this team to run the ball, considering that. And then Trey Williams is listed as a running back 3 as we expected, so he should be nothing more than a handcuff at this point. So basically, I'm starting Gardner. I would second guess starting Farrow, and I'm not starting Trey Williams. All right, let's jump over to the wide receivers, because this one is also pretty interesting. Kasen Williams was awarded the start on the outside, but he was a DNP with a quad injury, and Dontez Byrd looks to take over his role if Williams can't suit up. These were two guys that I definitely am more excited about than the rest of the guys here in Seattle, so I think if Kasen Williams starts, you can play him. If not, you can play Byrd in his stead. Outside of Williams, we see that Keenan Reynolds is the other starter, and then Austin Proehl in the slot. I'm not really excited for any of those guys here. This is not going to be a heavy pass volume team, so pretty much the only guy I'm willing to start would be Kasen Williams if he plays, or Dontez Byrd if Kasen Williams is out. All right, then let's jump over to tight ends. Another huge surprise here. Evan Rodriguez, who we expected to be the main pass-catching tight end, is listed as the tight end 3 on this depth chart behind Colin Jeter and Ben Johnson. Colin Jeter is a blocking tight end, so that one doesn't concern me too much, but Ben Johnson could be a more interesting problem. If you have another option at tight end, I would rather see how this one plays out between Ben Johnson and Evan Rodriguez in terms of target volume before wanting to put one on my team. So both of those guys are holds if you can. And then on the defensive side, again, you might not have a choice just based on the amount of teams in this league, but DC looks to have one of the more electrifying offenses in the XFL. They're playing at home and they have a 7.5 favored spread, so I would prefer to not play Seattle if I can. But as stated, I'm expecting for the defenders to be able to win this game pretty decisively at home. We'll see how this breaks out. This will be the first game for the XFL, so make sure you check it out at 2 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, if you're interested in XFL content, hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be posting stuff every day. I also have rankings posted on my website over at fantasyaddictionnetwork.com, so make sure you check those out. But anyway, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video.